guys ready? All right. Oof, goodness. Good afternoon, everyone. All right. Thank you to that table over there. I hope everyone has had their after lunch coffee because we have an excellent session for you. This is session 3A, Working for Inclusive Communities, the connection between civil rights outreach and housing. So I have the pleasure of introducing our Civil Rights Outreach Division, who will be doing this panel. So this panel will be moderated by Director Cheryl Meck. And Cheryl Meck serves as the Director of Civil Rights Outreach within the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Prior to this role, Meck served a combined 10 years in the adult probation and parole field. She began her career supervising high-risk cases as a state agent from Maryland. She then transferred employment to Lancaster County Adult Probation and Parole, where she supervised and worked closely with domestic violence offenders for 5 years before being promoted to supervisor of the Behavioral Health Neurodevelopmental Disorders Unit as the first Filipina-American woman in a management position within the history of the Lancaster County Adult Probation. Meck is a founder and co-chair of the Diversity, Respect, Inclusivity, Values, and Equity, or DRIVE Committee of the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. She is a graduate of California University of Pennsylvania, where she earned her Bachelor's of Liberal Arts degree in Criminal Justice with a concentration in Forensic Science in 2010. Meck has earned a Master of Science degree in Public Safety with concentration in Public Administration from Capella University in 2012, she continued on, earning 28 credits towards her doctorate of public administration. Next up, we have Omar Henriquez. Omar is an experienced clinician and leader with a strong background in mental health, substance abuse treatment, and case management. Omar is skilled in multicultural counseling, crisis intervention, and program development. He is adept at fostering inclusive environments, providing trauma-informed care, and ensuring equitable access to services for diverse populations. Next, I'm going to introduce Anita Levels. Anita joins the Civil Rights Outreach team with experience in training and development, child legal advocacy, higher education, also with MH Clinician Care specializing in the wellness of marginalized communities. As a performative and informative artist, Anita educates on Black American music and how the sound of its resistance has always been at the center of Black folks' resilience. Anita Levels has her bachelor's in social work and master's in training and development, both from Carlow University in Pittsburgh, PA. Montrell Smith is a civil rights outreach coordinator for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. He has worked for the agency for 2.5 years, beginning as a civil rights complaints investigator in 2023. His current role is part of a boots-on-the-ground division resolving civil tensions in communities, providing training and presenting on protections for all Pennsylvania residents and visitors under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Born in Savannah, Georgia, but raised in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, he attended the Harrisburg School District and graduated from Central Penn College in 2003. Raised by his grandmother and aunt, Montrell was instilled with the values of being considerate, fair, humble, honest, and forgiving, yet cautious. Display compassion, humility, kindness, gratitude, and respect for others by showing them comfort, generosity, goodness, and honor, especially to those who are less fortunate. And last, but certainly not least, we've got Hector Torres Diaz. Hector is a legal professional and civil rights advocate with a background in immigration law, public policy, and community engagement. He is pursuing a Juris Doctorate at Wilmington University School of Law, while serving as a Civil Rights Outreach Coordinator at PHRC. His experience includes roles as a senior paralegal at Diaspora Law and an immigration paralegal at Cathay Law Offices, assisting clients with immigration cases. Actively involved in political advocacy, he holds leadership positions in organizations supporting Latino representation and Puerto Rican sovereignty. Fluent in English and Spanish, Hector is committed to legal advocacy, policy analysis, and social justice. So we've got an impressive team here, and I will turn it over to them.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Brittany, for such a warm welcome to the Civil Rights Division of the PHRC. It is an honor and privilege to be standing here alongside a dedicated team of social justice change agents. Each of these individuals come with a unique skill set a passion, and a drive to pursue justice and empower others. The Civil Rights Division is a newer part to the agency overall, and we are embarking on our second year together. At one time, what you see up here started only as a thought, an idea coupled with hope, and then action to make it come alive. Our executive director, Chad Dion Lassiter, envisioned something that was never done before in this way for the people of the Commonwealth. We are Pennsylvania's peacemakers. We extend the reach of the PHRC down a path that was never crossed. We are the team that is committed to showing up in times of civil unrest. We will travel anywhere across the state, to your community, to sit at your table, and to share and listening to your heart and your experiences. As our executive director's words also strengthen and guide us, we listen, learn, and then lead. We are also the team that will travel back to your community. We are not a one-stop shop. And the Civil Rights Division is committed to the people. We want to make sure that every single person is aware of their rights under the law. I am excited for this moment, for this afternoon, as each of our Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators will take part in presenting to you on the incredible work the team has done over the last year. And I'm also excited for you to hear more about our work. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Civil Rights Outreach Coordinator Hector Torres-Diaz to kick us off with an overview of the PHRC, your protections under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, and then we'll get into the work of the Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators, AKA the Crocs.
Well, hello everyone. As they said, my name is Hector Torres-Diaz. I'm one of the Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators from Harrisburg. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who we are and a little bit of some basic information on the PHRC. So, should I be waiting on some slides or something? I'm not. Everybody looked back. So, should be right here. Am I moving this? Sorry, I'm very technologically illiterate, so forgive me. I'm moving it this way. The green button. The other button. Keep going, all right. I'll go. Other way? I'm telling you, I'm not very technological.
This is our second year, y'all.
Oh, the other one. I now see it. Thank you. So, once again, I appreciate the grace here. So as I was saying, this is just our overview to the Civil Rights Division. So thank you all for joining us on this little journey this afternoon. So to begin, this is our engagement acknowledgement. This is just letting everybody know, hey, you know, a lot of this information is going to sound like we're giving you legal advice. It's going to sound legalese to some extent. Please do not take it as such. This is just information that we are imparting towards everyone here so that you have a better understanding of your rights, who we are, and how you can access us to access those potential resources. So we have our mission, our vision, and our values. So at the PHRC, we try to promote equal opportunity for all and enforce Pennsylvania's laws and protect people from unlawful discrimination. That's our mission. Our vision, as you can see up here, is that we are Pennsylvania's civil rights leaders, and it is our vision that everyone in the state of Pennsylvania will live free from unlawful discrimination. And then our values, as you can see, are for equality, service, integrity, excellence, and teamwork, as you saw displayed up here with everybody was super gracious with my technological savviness a few seconds ago. And these are our 4 amazing offices. We have one, our central office in Harrisburg. Alongside our Harrisburg regional office, we have a lovely Pittsburgh regional office directed by Director, excuse me, I'm blanking on names, from Robinson. And our Harrisburg regional office is directed by R.D. Roth, which is sitting in the back there. And then we have our Philadelphia regional office as well. So moving forward, we now have our governing laws. We have the PHRA and we have the PFEOA. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Act is exactly what created the PHRC. It was enacted in 1955, and it covers all discrimination in employment, housing, education, commercial property, and public accommodations. This is our PHRA. Now, for the Pennsylvania Fair Educational Opportunities Act, this was enacted in 1961. This covers specific post-secondary education, so it could be trade schools, universities. Those are the kinds of things that fall under that. And then these are our sectors of protection. So as briefly mentioned previously, we do employment, education, housing, commercial property, and public accommodation. Now, I want to talk about the last one a little bit because sometimes that one seems a little confusing, convoluted, and a little mystical for many people. What does public accommodations mean? Is ensuring you have equal access. So for example, you see this ramp right here. If one of our speakers was in a wheelchair and they needed to come up here, this is creating access. That is providing an accommodation that is required so that all people have access to this stage. And then we have our protected classes. It goes from ancestry all the way down to race. There is one specifically here called family status. This one specifically only applies to housing. I know I'm going a little quickly, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me. And then I would like to pass it over to my colleague, O.C. Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to discuss how to file a complaint. If an individual feels that they have been the victim of illegal discrimination, then these are the steps to pretty much file a complaint. They should definitely contact the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission to file a complaint. When you are filing a complaint with us, a dedicated, trained, and neutral PHRC investigator will walk you through the complaint process. They will process and help the preparation of your actual complaint. So with the PHRC in our complaint process, you do not need a legal team, you do not need an attorney to file a complaint or go through this process. That's what our investigators are trained to do, and they will walk you through it step by step and give you all of the information as they're taking investigating your complaint. The PHRC staff will investigate the complaint, and our PHRC counsel, our lawyers, will serve as your counsel for the complainant. So again, you will not need an attorney. You have the right to gain one or pay for one, but our attorneys are there and free of charge for the citizens of Pennsylvania. If the allegations in the complaints are covered under the federal law enforced by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the PHRC will file the complaint with the appropriate federal agencies. So it will be a dual file. If your complaint falls under the EEOC or the HUD, the PHRC will take the responsibility in filing with those federal agencies as well. Which one? The next process is intake. So this is the actually initial process. Once you feel like you have been discriminated against, our intake representatives will speak with you, will set up an appointment with you, and will take in your complaint and forward it to a PHRC investigator. They will be asked to fill out a housing questionnaire to provide contact information from what they've experienced and who they're filing the complaint against. The intake team will assess their information to see if there is a situation that the PHRC can investigate under the state law. So your first process will be with an intake specialist who will hear your concerns, hear your complaint, draft it up, and then forward it over to our investigators. The investigation process. They will be asked to provide information to a neutral investigator who is responsible for investigating if there was any violation of the PHRA, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. This investigator may ask for documents, interview witnesses, hold fact findings, hearings, and seek other ways to obtain evidence. So if there was witnesses who were around when your discrimination happened, We will need to know their names, contact information, because we will reach out to them to get statements as well. Mediation services may be an option as well, depending on the case and if both parties actually agree. So both parties have to agree to mediation before it can go through that process. Otherwise, it could possibly move forward to a public hearing. The investigator will also explore if it is possible to settle the case before a finding. If both parties agree and there's a settlement prior to going to any public hearing, the investigator will try its best to actually get it through that process first before moving along to any type of public hearing. Statute of limitations. This is probably one of the most important ones. Complaints that are filed with the PHRC that are considered untimely will be referred to the federal partners for consideration. In order to file a timely complaint with the PHRC, you have to file that complaint within 180 days from the time that the discrimination took place. So that is very important, 180 days from the time that took place. If the 180-day ends on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday, the time period extends to the next business day. Federal statutes are for EEOC is 300 days, and federal statute for HUD is 365 days. So if the incident or the discrimination took place in one of those agencies, we will also do a file with those, but their days are a lot longer than ours, so 300 and 365. Also, just before I forget, because this is not up there, if there is a student or if there is a child under 18 who was discriminated against, and their parents or their guardian do not file a complaint, that child or that student has 180 days from the time that they turn 18 to file a complaint. So they still have rights once they turn 18 if their parents or their guardian did not file a complaint. Discriminatory actions, discriminatory statements, discriminatory inquiries, refusal to sell or lease or finance housings. There's some situations where there are appraisers who are appraising homes of people of color a lot lower than people who of different races. The unfair appraisals is one of the discriminatory actions. Predatory lending, discriminating in housing terms or conditions, sexual harassment, and refusal to provide reasonable accommodations or modifications are all part of discriminatory actions. For remedies for housing cases, if there is a probable cause, some of the remedies that could resolve that complaint could be reasonable accommodation or modification that is made, changes to leases or other policies within that landlord or within the housing person, posting of fair housing notices, trainings for respondents. If a respondent was found having probable cause or found guilty of discriminatory acts, then there is training that they must take from the PHRC as a remedy for the case. Reimbursement of fees and out-of-pocket expenses, money for humiliation and embarrassment, and civil penalties are all remedies for potential housing cases. And when there is a probable cause, when there has been probable cause, there have been these awards, recent housing awards, $1.5 million awarded for housing provider failed to provide accessible units and ignored requests for reasonable accommodations for tenants with disabilities. There was a $100,000 award to a maintenance worker who sexually harassed a female tenant. The female tenant was awarded $100,000. She filed a complaint because the maintenance worker was sexually harassing her, and she was awarded that. $77,000 to housing provider made discriminatory statements and refused to rent to a household based on familial status. And these fair housing laws, I am going to hand over to our OC rep, Anita Levels.
Thank you, O.C. Smith. How are you all doing? You all are quiet. That 1.5 million doesn't make anybody happy. Yeah, because, we're talking about the PHRA and we're talking about enforcement. At the end of the day, enforcing, that's important. Litigation, that's what it's kind of about. And so when we see those figures, that's important to know that we're enforcing the PHRA. We're enforcing these laws. So good work. I'm always get excited when we see those things. So good work, you all. All right. Oh, now we're talking about laws. We're going to continue this. We only have a couple of slides here. Fair housing laws. So glad to see Director Eister and Brittany Millinger here. They know these a lot better than I do. So if we need any help, I can count on them. So let's go forward. Goals of fair housing. Goal number 1, end housing discrimination. Can everyone say that? End housing. It's very simple. Number 2, promote diverse and inclusive communities. So that's affordable housing. We can go on and on about what those ideas will be. Affirmatively furthering fair housing, taking meaningful action in addition to combating discrimination that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to opportunity based on protected characteristics. And I think it was, it was O.C. Torres that spoke about those 9 protected classes that we talked about. He spoke about age and race and familial status. Those would be considered the protected classes. What do fair housing laws cover? Sale and rental of housing and housing-related transactions, types of housing, apartments, single-family homes, manufactured housing communities, condominiums, public housing, nursing homes, dormitories, and more. Discrimination theories that we work with will be disparate treatment, disparate meaning discriminatory treatment, the other type of treatment. Which would mean treatment that directly discriminates against a member of a protected class. Again, those 9 that we talked about in the earlier slides that O.C. Torres mentioned. Disparate impact would be a policy that impacts a member of a protected class. Again, what we spoke about those earlier slides. Overview of fair housing laws. Federal. Moment of silence. The Fair Housing Act of 1968, our federal Fair Housing Act of 1968, and in Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and Americans ADA, they're still intact. Of course, we are the state, the PHRA. That's who we are. That's what we enforce. So let's give it up for the PHRA. We're here today helping with that. And as far as the Crocs, what we do, we're the outreach of that. And one of the main things that we're here to tell people is that discrimination is still illegal here in Pennsylvania. And you'll be surprised as the people are saying, oh, wow, really, is it? We were out speaking somewhere, and someone actually asked me, are they going to be able to put up segregated fountains? Someone actually asked me that. And that's the world that we're living in right now. So it's really important that we let people know that these legislations are still intact, that discrimination is still illegal in Pennsylvania. Local, check your local ordinances. We actually have the Pittsburgh Commission out here, Pittsburgh Human Relations Commission here. So checking even your Pittsburgh Commission, about their local ordinances that apply for housing. Housing jurisdiction, cover providers, FHA, which is the federal housing providers within 4 or more properties, unless they publicly advertise vacancies or receive federal funding, they're a cover provider. PHRA, which is the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, that's what we enforce, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Housing providers with 1 or more properties, that's within our jurisdiction. The filing timeline, I think, which we already spoke about within the PHRA, but with FHA, compliant must be filed within 365 days, a little bit longer than what we have. Ours is like what we mentioned earlier, 180 days. That's what I have for me. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, O.C. Torres. Hector, back to you.
Well, I guess I'm back for round 2. Hopefully I can do better this time than the first time around. So, So now we're going to introduce the Civil Rights Division. It was established in February of 2024. One of our OCs, who is now a supervisor in the Philadelphia Regional Office, former OC Joshua Nix, was one of the first Crocs to ever come to the PHRC, followed by our esteemed director, Director Meck, subsequently OC Smith, myself, Enriquez, and now the lovely Anita Levels. And so our responsibilities, what are they? So we provide complex facilitation and conflict resolution for services across the state. What does that mean? It just means that we go into areas of conflict. We try to not just be reactive, but we try to be very proactive with our solutions. If we hear concerns from across the Commonwealth, we want to make sure that we lead with initiatives that will ensure that everyone in the Commonwealth knows who we are, knows what resources the PHRC has, and how they can access them. And that's, a really fun part of this job. We get to bring us to you without you having to do the legwork. We also, as I kind of hinted at, we engage in proactive outreach to educate the public about the dangers of bias, hate, and the importance of being anti-racist. Because we can educate about the issues of racism, but it is important that people understand why it's important to be an anti-racist. So then, moving forward, these are our community response plans. These are some of those things that I mentioned. On top of being a civil rights outreach coordinator, I am our community liaison. So I am in the thick of, helping organize, keeping records of these amazing community outreach efforts. As you can see, there's one here in Cumberland County, which was led by Directors Meck and OC Smith. What these usually entail are presentations or panels or even community resource fairs like we did last August in Freeland. And it is to ensure, once again, that we get resources to those communities. It can simply be an educational outreach effort where we educate you specifically, for example, as OC Smith and I did in Norristown. We provided an entire educational training in Spanish. Why? Because that was how we met the need of that particular community. So these are, very broad, but they are also very inclusive because it could be very much tailored to a community's specific needs. So if you need to understand, for example, like what immigration resources out there, we try to tailor a presentation to that particular request. We also provide you, once again, with some of the generic information, like how many days you have to apply, what does it mean to have an incident. And there's something that our executive director always says that I think it's super, super important to understand. Always file whether it's real, perceived, or imagined, because it is not your job to figure it out, it is ours. So now we turn to our No Hate in Our State town halls. These are very similar to the community outreach responses. But these are a little more elaborate because we specifically go into the communities and we target specific pillars of the community. We want to ensure that those members have access to their local leadership because those are the ones that really know the problems in those communities. So instead of us sitting up here, it would be you guys sitting up here and telling the PHRC what the problems in your community are and what solutions you have that you think if we work together, we can move the issues forward. And then some additional functions. We do lead our Civil Reduction Task Force. We do grassroots collaborations with the NAACP across the Commonwealth. We'll go to their events. We sit on some of their, for example, we sit on their Lebanon Police Committee, and we just kind of provide them with additional resources that we may have from our own social justice networks, which is also important as you go through this job. Another thing that we do is our advisory councils. And please, 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 if you have any questions about what that is, talk to us after, because we'll try to engage you and try to get you to join one, because they're extremely important. that goes hand in hand with our social justice ambassador, led by O.C. Enriquez. These two particular functions are extremely important because you're the eyes and ears of the community. We can't function without knowing what your problems in PA are. We are the state agency that handles all of these issues, but if we don't know where they are, how can we address them? So these two particular functions allow us to interact with the community in ways that a state agency normally wouldn't, and people from your community wouldn't have access to these resources otherwise. We also increase connections in Western PA, such as the event out here today, which I think we've all had a marvelous time. We do free trainings, and our lovely Director of Education, Director Chang, does many of those a year, and I think she ran, what, about 3,000 miles last year alone, something like that, just to educate the state on all of these issues. And then we do restorative dialogue and conversations, because those are important. It's not just about learning about the issues, but how do we use these issues to heal our communities and actually bring them to a cohesive point. And not to belabor the point, but we also observe school board meetings, because it is important with how things are shaping up with all of these organizations coming in, whether we want to see them as good intentioned or bad intentioned, they are changing the dynamic and the landscape of schools, and we need to be there to ensure that things are on the track of where they are supposed to be. And then I would like to turn it over to O.C. Enriquez to describe what the Beloved Community Tour process looks like.
Well, thank you, O.C. Torres. If you guys don't already know who I am Omar Enriquez. I'm one of the Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators. And I apologize for the cumbersome setup here. I tend to overly prepare sometimes. So in being over prepared, I want to ask everyone, just to make sure you guys are awake, everyone does have a booklet, correct? Yes. All right, and if you have a booklet, please turn to the second to the last page. You actually are going to see the 3 slides I'm going to talk about. Please use the QR code to log in and actually become a social justice ambassador, and or if not, please I encourage you to, again, scan the QR code and look into the advisory council. So before we go there now, the Beloved Tour. What is the Beloved Tour? The Beloved Tour is an initiative that our executive director actually started. We're down to the last 7 counties of the 67 counties, so yay. Funny enough that we are here in Pittsburgh. The last 2 stops will be here in Allegheny County, so kudos to Pittsburgh, yay. The reason why the executive director decided to do the Beloved Tour, the agency has been around since the 50s, since 1955. We are an enforcement agency, but one of the things that the ED does is that he leads by education. He wants to educate the community to know that even though we are here and we are an enforcement agency, we are here to educate you first before we take any matters to the next level. Again, just like you heard through our panels, how to file a complaint, how to use your resources. Please, again, the booklet is there. If you don't have a booklet, see O.C. Mellinger, myself, or any PHRC staff. Next slide. Just like I shared with the social ambassador. What is a social ambassador? A social ambassador is basically you are the boots on the grounds. You are the eyes and ears of your community. We can't come out to your community if we don't know what's going on. We would love to have representation in all 67 counties. We want to be able to just, hey, if we're going out to Beaver, if we're going out to Erie, we want to be able to touch on, hey, Hector, hey, on Director Meck, what's going on in your community? We want to know who are the targeted individuals and what's going on. So if you want to become social justice ambassadors, again, scan the QR code. Please visit through the presentation. When we had a break, there is a slide. Every second Tuesday, we do have a virtual platform where I myself have run it the last couple of months, but it is open to any of the Crocs to facilitate. Second Tuesday of every month, you will run into a live individual from the Croc team to be able to answer any of your questions, see if we can engage with your community, and so forth. And lastly but not least, advisory council. Again, like I shared, what we're looking for is representation in all 67 counties. What is the difference between the advisory council and the social justice ambassador? Where the social justice ambassador, you are the eyes and ears of your community. The advisory council, you are a council that is actively working your community to address those injustices in your community. You are working hand in hand with us. I will be, between myself, OC Smith, OC Torres, OC Levels, and also our director, we all oversee particular counties. I do see certain chairs from the advisory council, so thank you guys for coming. I can't encourage you enough. We can only make a difference in your community if you help us. We're not gonna come in and tell you what to do. We wanna work hand in hand with you. With that, I'll defer over to my director, Director Mack.
Okay. Which button were y'all pushing? This one? Okay. All right. So we just have a few more slides left, and then we'll wrap it up into our closing. But basically, the 67 county Beloved Community Tour, our community response plans, our No Hate in Our State town halls across the state have really allowed us to have that firsthand experience with our eyes and our ears, listening to stories of what's going on. And with specific to housing, as this is the housing conference, as many of you are aware of the different issues that, they're happening across the state. So with appraisal bias, with landlord discrimination, with blanket Section 8 housing the it is become extremely difficult. And so if you haven't yet, at our PHRC table, we do have the white paper book, which was spearheaded by Executive Director Laster and our former Fair Housing Director, Adrian Garcia, and many hands, dedicated hands, worked into that project. But it really is a comprehensive, deep dive into the issues of housing across the state with respect to race, disability, income, so on and so forth. And one of the biggest things that it addresses is that there is not one minimal code that defines habitable housing across the state. And I think that's so important that we have to, really take a look at that and ask ourselves why and what action steps that we can take. So with that white paper, there's also recommendations listed in that. And so if you haven't picked up a copy, I strongly encourage that you do on your way out. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about overall concerns that we are seeing across PA. I'm referencing data from Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a nonprofit legal advocacy organization that specializes in civil rights and public interest litigation. More importantly for us, it tracks the data of anti-government and hate groups across the nation. Make no mistake, we all in this room recognize that there is a white supremacy problem. Depending on what classes you took, we did the racial gap wealth simulation, and that was so profound in showing the compounded effects after policy after policy after policy, and what positions people are placed in depending on simply the color of your skin and the stories that your families and the generations have gone through. And so we are here today in various levels of vicarious trauma, various levels of maybe some silver spoons and privileges that you didn't necessarily ask for. But we are in a space where that we should come together across the color line and figure out how to continue moving the social justice needle forward. And so with that, I did want to point out from Southern Poverty Law Center, their report this year has not come out yet for their most recent data, but as of 2023, more than 1,500 extremist groups operating across the nation have been tracked. And these are groups that push white supremacy, white Christian nationalism ideology, anti-government sentiment, anti-Semitism, and other various dangerous ideologies. And we are at the tipping point where it's no longer subtle, it's no longer hidden, it's at times downright bold and brazen, and so that breeds fear. And understandably so, right? And fear, what does that do? It has a contagious effect into spreading the fear. But my team, we check on each other often with the vicarious trauma of our work, that while fear may breed additional fear, courage also breeds courage. And so, again, I'm just very thankful for this group up here. The next slide, though, before I go to it, is going to show across the nation, all the white dots are the identified extremist groups. In Pennsylvania alone, I think it was identified 78 hate groups, and the numbers are only increasing. So sometimes I think it's important to just take a moment and look. If I had just a picture of Pennsylvania, a lot of, because of the geographics, the higher number of hate groups and anti-government groups are definitely in the southeastern portion of the state, but make no mistake, it's also across in western PA. I think, too, it's also important why, when we talk about Moms for Liberty and right-wing Christian nationalist groups, how they're being voted into school board meetings and how policies are being looked at and implemented in ways that will definitely result in disparate treatment for a marginalized group. We have to know that information. We have to know where we can go to observe and watch and intervene if need be. And so I think we've shared the message enough, but we're open to any information that you have for us. So before I go into our resources, because this truly is just our last slide, I did want to take some time to share that this has been some of the most profound work that I've been able to do with my life, personally and professionally. I wanted to share with you all just 3 examples in the last year of spaces that we've been in. And so does anybody remember the name Justin Johnson? He was a 16-year-old immigrant from Jamaica, and he came out of the school district, forgive me, Central Dauphin? Central Dauphin. Justin Johnson lost his life, unfortunately, and basically the facts of the case stand that there was a senior game going on called tag, and it's not the tag that we would initially think of, like tag you're it. It's where they knock at your doors, they get you to come out, and they chase you around with a Nerf gun. And so while it can seem harmless, so to speak, we have to put ourselves in Justin's shoes that night. And 3 classmates came to his door. They actually came one night while I believe his father was home, so they left, and then they came back again when Justin's father wasn't there. They got Justin to come outside, and they're chasing him, shooting the Nerf guns at him, and you hear derogatory terms. Go back to Africa. And he's running, and you can tell there's fear there that's going on. He ultimately, his heart stopped, and he lost his life after that. The coroner stated that he died as a result of being diagnosed with sickle cell. And this is an unfortunate pattern that has repeated itself throughout history, where we will use a different definition as to why a Black man or Black woman loses their life, whether it's drug use or being overweight or aggression that required the use of force by the cop. But what happened with Justin was he was pushed to a point where his symptoms of sickle cell were exacerbated. And that's what caused, his heart to stop. I am no medical expert. I'm just a mom, that when I think about how he felt being chased around and getting worked up to passing out, if those students had never crossed his path that night, I truly believe that he would still be here today. Now, I will also say, as we had a phenomenal keynote speech from Hill Harper on what can we do, I don't want to minimize how big or how small, as I call it, ripple effects can be, because ripple effects are also compounding. So whether you're a grassroots organization, working in one town or one community, or you're a state agency, or we have all the intersects here, keep going, keep working, because it's so powerful what we can produce from that. I will say too that last I checked, no charges ever came about. I believe the one child that chased Justin Johnson is the son of one of the people in the police department. And we all can kind of go from there, right? Two more things. I wanted to share when we highlighted the No Hate in Our State Town Hall in Charleroi, PA this year. The result of that, these are more immediate responses. Something happened, we work quickly. I serve as a panelist, Executive Director Edie Lassiter serves as a panelist, but we also pick people from the community that are doing the work. And we talk together and we'll ask questions, we'll be asked questions on exactly what's happening. Is anybody familiar with Charleroi and the light that was shined, the negative light that was shined on the area with respect to the Haitian population? I see some heads nodding, yeah. It continued after that was highlighted. And they were having a really unfair, difficult time in figuring out how to start up and be productive members of society. And so the neighborhood that, the generations that have been there were having a difficult time accepting change. And so one of the beautiful things about No Hate in Our State Town Halls is while it opens up the door for both sides. Think of the title, No Hate in Our State Town Hall. Depending on how you feel, how you're socialized, how you're cultural, that might trigger you, right? It might promote you, it might make you want to come, it might, you might want to just go to see what it's about. Regardless, I've been so grateful for these opportunities because there are moments where we open it up to the community, and that's where the work begins. People can share their anger, they can share their pain, they can share what their families have gone through. There are people that share their ignorance. And they might not see it as such, but as the conversation goes on, there's something that I have to give credit in my faith to God that's happening. There's something that's happening. When you put people in a room and you can explain your pains and you can explain your position and your misunderstandings or your hurts, but you have other people helping. And I'll just give a quick example with that. There was a white man that was in all his right to be upset that a vehicle had crashed into his home. The person that drove the vehicle was an undocumented Haitian, so no car insurance. So I understand your property was damaged, but what was not okay was his added sentence that no Haitians should be able to drive. They should not be given a driver's license, they. And so now one incident, while that incident was not fair, and it definitely stinks, you can't blanket statement everybody. And in the same room, we had law enforcement talk about the report of the previous month. Well, to be honest with you, last month, all 10 accidents were done by white people. And so it opens up that door of just having those conversations. And this example and the previous one, yes, are rooted in race. But I think the beauty of this job is we get to see all the different issues with respect to the protected classes. It's broadened our perception and our knowledge and wisdom gained because, classism sees no color lines. Edie Lassiter says such a profound statement when he says that there's only two kinds of people, the elite and then we the people. And I think that we really need to rest on that and recognize that as we move forward questioning what's next, how are we gonna do this? What we need to do is look left and right, and we need to stay well-read, and we need to empower our children, the next generation. You need to look at your neighbor, love your neighbor. You need to walk in kindness. And so I'm really, really grateful for this division and that our boss created that. With just a thought at one point. And so I think I'll end it here with that here's our PHRC resources. Again, I strongly recommend the white paper that's on the table. We have a Civil Rights Division part on our webpage. If you want us to come out, whether it's to a college campus to help, maybe there's students that are having issues with the campus security and trust with that. It could be anything with the complexities of humanity. We're willing to come to your community. So with that, we thank you. And I think we do have some time for questions. Yes, ma'am. Hi. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, no problem. I have a big mouth, but I'll do with the mic. With the current the current way that the federal government is moving, do you guys, I have a background in civil rights, do you guys suggest or recommend filing the dual charge right now with the EEOC for discriminatory matters in PA? And is it required? As far as I know, it's not required to file a dual charge, but just for the sake of the audience, is it required to file a dual charge?
Yeah. Does everyone's mics here work? Because we can all take turns.
We're going to file dual complaints because that's just what we do. Is it required? No. If you probably ask us not to, we probably wouldn't. Confirming with R.D. Roth. But as far as that goes, I know there's been significant changes in the federal government within EEOC and HUD. We actually have been doing some trainings with them and have another one coming up. Yes, there's been a lot of people who have left that were doing really good work, but we will still file that complaint. There should be a paper trail, there should be records for your complaint. So I would suggest and I would say yes, you should and we will.
Thank you for that question. Director Berman?
Oh, there we go. Hello. So my question is, I know it's like 180 days that you have the filing window. So my question is, in ongoing situations, like let's say it's a repeated harassment or discrimination situation, when is would it be from the last incident? Because let's say it's an ongoing situation, they file at the second incident, but while the claim is being taken, there are more incidents that are of similar nature continue. So just for clarity, because I was wondering this as you were talking, is it 180 from the last incident, from filing, from how does that work?
In my experience, and R.D. Roth can correct me because I see she's looking. If it's retaliation, like if the person filed a complaint and then there's continued discrimination, or if they feel like they've been retaliated against, it is the same. And then there is the same complaint. But if there was retaliation, we will create a new complaint for that retaliation part. Am I correct then, R.D. Roth?
Yes, sort of.
Thank you.
So we have 180 days from the last thing that happened, but there's two situations where we might say it's an ongoing violation. So any kind of harassment that, even if it goes 3 years back, if it's continuing and it's not been addressed, we can investigate all the harassment that occurred, really no matter how long it's been continuing. The other situation you might be able to get through, which is more than 180 days, is a pay disparity. So the first time that you learned that you had unequal pay, we might be able to subsequently go back and look at it. And you're correct, if there's then retaliation, that would be a whole new separate complaint that we would add after the fact for another violation.
A quick question is, so we know that at the federal level, we've lost the LGBT protections that were included under sex because the rulemaking was rescinded. And at the state level, we included those LGBTQ protections under a similar rulemaking process. And so we're all struggling with this. So my question to you all is, what's happened in the past month in March is there's now litigation against Pennsylvania and the interpretation of the PHRA, including those LGBTQ protections. And so do you all have any talking points, or how are you engaging with communities about that ongoing litigation regarding LGBTQ protections in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I was directed to take it. So as far as the Title IX changes, so we were repealed back at the federal level to the 2020 version of the sex protections. The PHRA continues to maintain those broadened definitions that were expanded in August of 2023. As it stands, we can't discuss any ongoing litigation, and we also cannot give any legal advice. However, our law dictates that we recognize those expanded definitions of religion, race, and sex, and we will continue to enforce our law based on those expanded definitions until, if, and when they change.
Great question also, and superb response. I would encourage all of you to look at our protections under the PHRA, our LGBTQ plus protections. And if you're in agreement with them, I'm not here to sway you one way or another, we plan on doing amicus briefs, but you can also send a letter to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and say, listen, your LGBTQ plus regulations, we're in support of it. This is our agency. Because it's not an either or, it's a both and. We do what we do, you do what you do, but we heard Hill say it. And I think we all can reach consensus even before Hill stated it, that we do some amazing work, but we oftentimes do work in silos. And that was the purpose for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission to embark upon the Beloved Community Tour. I don't fundamentally or foundationally believe that it's the people of the Commonwealth that should know who we are. It's our job to go to the community and say, in rural PA, this is who we are. In suburban PA, this is who we are. In urban PA. For us, and I'm not saying we have this, but at times, governmental entities can have a peculiar arrogance. What do you mean that people don't know the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission? We're on social media, we're here, we're there. No, we need to go out, and that's what we've embarked upon. So to that question, which was a good question, thank you for raising that question. If you're in support of what we're doing, if you believe that people who are LGBTQ plus deserve protection under the law, just like those of us who are disabled, so forth and so on, then feel free to write a letter to the regional directors in the regional offices of Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, to me as the executive director, to any member of PHRC that you have a relationship with, professional relationship with, because there is strength in numbers. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're tearing away, affirmative action, that's gone, reproductive rights, Roe versus Wade, those of us who came of age knowing that, wow, there were prior generations that were fighting for protection under the law with reproductive rights, Roe versus Wade, affirmative actions, and things of that nature. And so we're in a dark period, but I once again believe that it's entities like not just the PHRC, but all of us, you can write to your state legislators, you can write to your senators on a federal level for just the question that was just remarked. The other thing too is that if there are some critiques that you have of our LGBTQ plus regulations, and I don't want to belabor this, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, we're not above reproach. If there's something that you don't think is occurring, let us know. If there's something within our regulations, whether it's religious protections, pregnancy protections, LGBTQ plus, a document that we have addressing Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, AAPI hate, anti-black racism, please reach out to us. Please reach out to us. We just ask that whatever critique or criticism that you have, let's also juxtapose that with recommendations. And the 3 pillars of the civil rights movement is truth, love, and kindness. So please come at us, but come at us with truth, love, and kindness.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have
forgive me if it's already been addressed, but I know you've been given a lot of guidance on, like, in regards to housing. Do you have anything or a direction where someone should look if it was anything in regards to kids and in the school districts?
Could you repeat that last part?
As far as discrimination, as far as in a school district or for schools, do you have a direct resource page or guidance to where someone should look?
Yes, absolutely. So those additional, that infograph, discrimination in education, is out there on the table as well. And if, say, just because you asked, if in your area, in your school, if there's issues with bullying, harassment, whether it's anti-race, I'm sorry? Oh, if it's anti-Semitism, email us, give us a call. We'll design something and come out. Our director of education, we support the education division, and so she trailblazes that way with the different trainings that she does on cultural competency, bullying and harassment. And with the dismantling of the OCR, people are left with, well, where do we file now when it comes to education discrimination cases? We're still here. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is still here. And as we've said, whether it's real, perceived, or imagined, or if you don't know if it would qualify under our jurisdiction, file anyways. Make that move anyways, Does that help answer? Okay, did I miss anything? Because it was just a little hard to hear. Good? No problem, thanks for asking.
Hi, it's been a while. I just wanted to ask, it's been a while since I've been in the civil rights sector. That's how I started my legal career. But is there still a difference for initiating your complaint in the EEOC or PHRC? Because it used to be that the difference was PHRC does the mediation, EEOC doesn't. Is that still the case now?
So I am gonna pass that, and I just wanted to say here that the Civil Rights Division, we are completely separate from investigation. So these are great questions, and I wanna make sure you get your answer. But I don't wanna be misleading in, we'll come in, we'll come back, we'll repeat if necessary, especially when it comes to building that trust and relationship with people that are undocumented, because you're also protected under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. But that's a little intimidating, right? A state agency coming, you can understandably recognize that there's fear there. And so we are that drop in, that continue to help alleviate, but once specifically a complaint has been filed, we completely step away. So I appreciate the question, and I'll hand it over to Artie Roth right there to answer.
If I understand what you're asking, do we do mediation? Do they do mediation? Okay. We both offer mediation. I think it probably depends how many cases are offered at each. Our director of mediation is over here. If you file a complaint with us, probably 98% of our complaints will be eligible for mediation. So once we get an answer from the respondent, if both parties are willing to mediate, we will send every single one of those cases over and ask Director Berman's team to mediate them, and they're happy to do that. With the EEOC, I think they do make some decisions up front. To your point, a lot of people get just a right to sue letter. Some they offer mediation. I can't speak to their process, but I can definitely tell you, you have a good shot at mediation if both parties are willing here at PHRC. So we have a great team, if I didn't already say that.
I also wanted to add to, on the slide with advisory councils, so that's something that is growing. I'm not sure the exact number, 15, 16 councils exist across the state. Our hope is to increase that number. And so if you're asking, what does that require of you? At minimum, it would be a virtual or in-person meeting with one of our outreach coordinators. Sometimes they're monthly, depending on how active the group. Other times they're quarterly. But it's a way to share, as Omar Henriquez said, on what's going on or different events you'd like to see the PHRC come to support or table at. And there's a little bit more with that, but you know, if that's something that interests you, on the map, it shows what counties councils already exist. And if you know a group of 5 or 6 individuals and you see it's in an area where there's not a star, but you're interested in starting that and being an extension of us, definitely feel free to talk to one of us afterwards.
Can I intersect, Director Mill?
Yes,
Is there
absolutely.
anyone here, I'm going to shameless AC plug here. Anyone here from the Erie area? No. Anyone here from Cambria County? Okay, I'll be seeing you later. Anyone here from the Uniontown, in the Uniontown area? Okay, no one. Anyone here? Okay, we already talked about Beaver. Okay, just wanted to see. Thank you.
There's one right there.
Okay.
About housing. I don't even know if you would handle this. I'm here because this was a housing, equality conference. I represent a community group here in Pittsburgh. It is called Charles Street Area Council, started by Dorothy Mae Richardson, and she is who is well known to have started NeighborWorks America. There are a lot of residents in my low-income neighborhood who are homeowners thanks to the work that they did in the past, right? Remember what Hill said, so that's not a shameless plug, but it is just to show that the work that happened in the 70s still goes on today. My question for you all is, has anybody considered how it seems like insurance companies are literally coming down on like neighborhoods where the property values are low and no longer insuring people's homes? I don't know if this is something you handle, or if there's research that you all are doing or could be done, but there's probably some federal class action lawsuit that could be filed against these insurance companies. I know a lot of people come to me and they need help because all of a sudden my homeowner's policy was canceled.
Is Director Garcia in here?
Yeah.
And then if not, could we get your business card or provide you with one of ours and we'll follow up with you?
Sure. Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Multiple states, New York, Ohio, New Jersey. Do you provide assistance and resources if someone lives in New York but works in Pennsylvania and feel like they're being discriminated against on the job?
Yes, absolutely. You do not have to be a resident of Pennsylvania to be protected under the PHRA. You can simply be traveling through and face discrimination, with respect to public accommodation and can file a complaint.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Anybody else? No? Do you want to come up? Okay.
So can we just give a round of applause